Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where you get the inside access to the best minds in the game. Each week, Chris has the privilege of chatting with top instructors, legendary players, course architects, and industry insiders. If you're looking to improve your game, gain a new perspective, or just hear some incredible golf stories, you are indeed in the right place.
You see, Chris, let me tell you something. I haven't spoken to a press man in my life that is knowledgeable, seriously, as you are. Never.
You do such a great job. It kind of makes me feel good all of a sudden.
You do so much for the game. You're so kind to all of us that are out there in the game. You know, we need more people like you in the game of golf.
Thank you for pressing play. Now, grab your clubs, step up to the tee, and let's get started. This is Next on the Tee.
Hi, folks, and welcome into this week's edition of Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and boy, do I have a special show lined up for you this week. I've got 4 guests who it is such a privilege to spend time with and get to share with you, starting with our resident director of instruction, Tom Patri. He's back. I get his thoughts on the U.S. Open and his boy J.J. Spaun winning it. We also talk about a couple of controversial rulings, right, that we all saw happen during the final round. Get TP's thoughts on that. You'll hear his thoughts as well on Rory breaking team markers, Wyndham Clark busting up the locker room, both guys not wanting to talk about things, plus his feelings regarding his longtime mentor, John Kennedy from the Mets section. And speaking of that wonderful guy, John Kennedy, he joins me right after TP, done on purpose, because I want you to hear about their relationship and the great things that John did for Tom as he was skyrocketing up through the teaching ranks. I also want to talk about John. Now, look, John was the 1997 PGA Professional of the Year. He won the Bill Strausbaugh Award multiple times, the Patriot Award for the work he's done with our military veterans over the years. The Learning Center at Westchester Country Club is named in his honor, and like I say, he's in the Mets Section Hall of Fame. So there's a lot to talk about with John tonight. And look, does anything more need to be said about how great this man is than all of this to this point? But we talk about his time at Westchester and whether it's more difficult being the host professional of a PGA Tour event or of a Senior Tour and LPGA major. I think his answer is really going to surprise you. We also look ahead to next year's U.S. Open at Shinnecock, right down the street from where John is on Long Island. So you're going to hear about what wind can do at Shinnecock. We look at what happened at Oakmont and the course setup. So you're going to have that, plus the opportunity for a lot of wind out there at Shinnecock. So John weighs in on that, plus his thoughts about the upcoming Ryder Cup, another event, right? Another big event that's right down the street from him as well, because that's going to be there at Bethpage Black. So John has got a lot of experience with both courses. You're going to love his insights on both of those things as well. Then in part 2, the chief marketing officer of an up-and-coming brand, Sunday Swagger, joins me. That is Kyle Malou. He is making his Next on the Tee debut with me this week. Kyle's going to talk to you about a brand that is changing the image of golf apparel. Look, they bring bold colors and striking designs to what they're putting out, and it's not just for guys, it's for the whole family. They make some really interesting apparel you can have for you as a man, you as a woman, or you can have it for your children as well. A lot of matching things, a lot of bold styles that are really appealing to younger folks. So it's a really interesting brand. Go out and check them out, sundayswagger.com. They're also partnering with one of my favorite beers, Guinness, on doing some bold things with that brand as well. So great designs, and he is just a fantastic guy and a fantastic speaker. So you're really going to enjoy the time with Kyle. And then I round things out this week with a quick turnaround visit from a 2-time winner on the PGA Tour and a 4-time Hall of Famer, Richard Zokol. Richard was so much fun last week, but we didn't get to some of his favorite player stories that he's going to include in his upcoming book. Remember, we talked about it. Next Father's Day, it's going to come out. It's called Zokology, Winning with Your Mind. But he also incorporates some fantastic stories. In this segment, you're going to hear about the interactions that he had with so many legendary players and so many funny stories, including about a guy who played on the PGA Tour that intimidated everybody out there, and a guy that would ultimately become Lee Trevino's bodyguard. You're going to hear about the practical joke that Richard played on Jack Nicklaus, the time he spent with Mo Norman and Clay Edwards at the 1984 Canadian Open and how that changed his golf game, plus his conversation with Byron Nelson at the 1993 Masters, and he touches on something that we've heard from some of his other peers out on tour, that he felt like he just didn't belong out there, which is a head-scratcher to me for a guy that was as good as Richard. Remember, he won the Canadian Amateur. He was a part of the BYU team that won the national championship. He won a couple of tour events. So it's interesting to me, and like I say, we've heard this before, about the feelings of not belonging out there. So we'll get into that as well. So, folks, so many great stories about to come your way this week here on Next on the Tee. Thank you so much for pressing play, tuning in, and taking the journey with me. Okay, but before we get into this week's show, I want to start off by giving a shout out to our good friends over at the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. TribLive.com is the leading news website for Western Pennsylvania with news around the clock. Pittsburgh pro sports coverage, a high school sports network, a podcast network, which you can find Next on the Tee on. So go out and bookmark TribLive.com or download the Trip Live app for free and stay up to date with all the news in Western Pennsylvania and this show. I also want to talk about our friends over at the Pittsburgh Brewing Company and Iron City Beer, a brand that I have loved my whole life and started drinking when I was 21 years old, of course. Whether you're a hacker or a scratcher, the secret to a successful day on the links is knowing when it's time to grab an iron, even if that means keeping it in the bag till the 19th hole. If it's been a while since you've reached for Pittsburgh staple beer, it's time to revisit Iron City. Thanks to their incredible new facility in Creighton, the best-tasting Iron City beer ever made is now available at a course near you. Iron City pairs well with any lie and sky and serves as a friendly reminder that there's always next round. Iron City Beer, best enjoyed while enjoying life. And folks, this year, get ready to experience the game like you've never experienced it before at the Keep. It's the brand new Bill Bergen and Reese Jones co-designed course up at Macklemore. Nestled high atop Lookout Mountain, the Keep offers breathtaking vistas that are even more spectacular in person than they are in the pictures and the videos. With its challenging layout and awe-inspiring views, every round there is an unforgettable adventure. Whether you're taking on the signature holes or just soaking in the scenery, the Keep is where your best golf meets nature's finest backdrop. So grab your clubs and join us up at Macklemore this year. The Keep is open for preview play and it's waiting for you. But you gotta hurry now because spots and availability are filling up fast. So don't wait. Check out both courses, the Highlands and the Keep, for yourself online at themacklemore.com. And then do yourself and your buddies, or yourself and your family a solid by getting your spot reserved now. And experience distance and forgiveness all at once with the new QI35 driver from TaylorMade. QI35 is designed to give golfers more distance from more of the face while maintaining maximized forgiveness through high MOI designs. Whether you're looking for low spin and maximum workability or easy launch and plenty of adjustability, it's available in low spin, core, and max models. QI35 also has a full assortment of fairway woods and rescues to deliver distance and forgiveness throughout the top end of your bag. Check them all out online at TaylorMadeGolf.com. All righty, now back in Next on the Tee with me as our resident director of instruction, Tom Patri. The summer golf season, as you guys know, it is well underway, and Tom is ready to help you play your best golf. You can find him down at Twin Eagles Golf Club in Naples, Florida. But if you're nowhere near there, but you still want to work with Tom, you can book a video lesson with him through the V1 app and get his help no matter where you are, anywhere on the planet. You can also check him out online on his website, tompatry.com, or on Instagram at TomPatryGolf, where he's taking your questions, oh, by the way, each morning around 8 a.m. Eastern Time. He also has some fantastic guests that pop in from time to time, so be sure to check him out and check out his page each and every morning to see what's going on. And I'm excited he is back with me again this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, TP, how are you, my friend? What happened to you?
What?
Wow. All right. Let's get things rolling right away, Tom, because there's a lot going on out on the PGA Tour. Last week, though, before we get into all of that, I want you to talk about your 9th annual marathon round of golf because you raised over 5 digits for the South Florida PGA Foundation. Update us on how it went.
Well, let me give you a little prelim to that, Christy boy. So tomorrow, I'm going to see a surgeon about possible right hip surgery.
Oh,
I've got major dental work going on, which is pretty painful. And today I found out I possibly might have a torn retina in my right eye.
oh my goodness.
How am
What
I doing?
happened when you went out there?
So, so in spite of that, we did the marathon on June 17th, and we played
You said
100
something to Meredith you shouldn't have said, didn't you?
She hit me.
Clubbed you at one point.
Twice, actually. We played 100 holes. We had to stop at 100 because we had some lightning and some rain. Unfortunately, I think I had 36 more in me, but then we had no choice. We had those lightning bolts coming down, so we stopped. We played 100 holes. We raised just over 12,000, which takes my 9-year total to just over $81,000 for the foundation, and pretty proud of that, and pretty proud of what the foundation has done, and pretty proud of what the South Florida PGA and Meredith and Jeff, our executive directors, have done. They've jumped in there with both feet in the deep end, and we're helping a lot of people in South Florida, so it's a great thing.
Yes, it is, and kudos to you for doing it again. 9th year in a row. You're the best.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
All right, so let's talk about some other things, and I'm still shaken by all the things that happened to you. We got to talk offline.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked on the show at least since the U.S. Open. So I want to start off with your boy J.J. Spaun. Started off red hot in the first round with a bogey-free 66, which is almost unheard of out at Oakmont, not to make a bogey. But I left him for dead, Tom, after he started the final round with 5 straight fives, so 5 over through 6 holes. But the weather delay seemed to do him a world of good, and after the restart, played the rest of the round at 2 under par, and that 65-foot birdie putt on the last is going to get replayed forever. What are your thoughts about our new U.S. Open champion?
Well, first of all, I was a J.J. Spaun fan, as you know, before this tournament. I thought the performance at TPC was extraordinary, and unfortunately, nerves got him in the playoff with Rory, and actually hit a really good shot on 17, if you remember, and just probably too amped up and hit it over the green, and that kind of did him in on 17. But I kind of watched this guy come along and have a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, but really resilient in his career. Whether it's a Canadian tour, some events overseas, South America, he's paid more than his dues. And as you know, Chris, we both know Oakmont pretty well. That 66 in the first round at Oak Monster, I call it. Oak Monster was nothing short of probably maybe the best round of the tournament. If you look back at the entire body of work of all the players. And then, as you said, that start in the last round and that break he got on number 2 was horrifically unlucky. And seemed like everything was going the wrong way, and he's derailed, and everybody was flying by him. And then to right the ship in that situation on that golf course and play the way he did coming down the stretch, and not only the putt on 18, which was miraculous, obviously, but 2 or 3 other putts in the back 90 they hold that were really, really good putts, and hit some quality golf shots. The shot he hit on 17 on the green in that situation, and hitting that, and you know how a driving hole in number 18, how hard that hole is to drive on the fairway. Kudos to him, man. That was a hell of a performance coming down the stretch.
Yes, it was. Opposite side of the coin for how guys played. First of all, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of rulings during the final round around the standing water. First, Cam Young wanted a puddle of water to stay behind the 13th green so he could use it as a backstop, but the officials came in and made them clear that water out. Then Sam Burns was denied relief by 2 rules officials on 15 when he thought his stance was in casual water. That ruling clearly got in his head because he would go on to make double from there and effectively ended his chances at winning the tournament. What did you think about what you saw in those last several holes around the standing water issue?
Well, the Cam Young thing is kind of comical. Cam had to know he wasn't going to get that ruling. That wasn't going to happen. He might as well call for Yogi Berra back there. good try, Cam, but not quite. And I'm a Cam Young fan, but I mean, Cam, really? You really asked for that? Come on, stop. The Sam Burns thing, I thought he got absolutely hosed in that ruling. He's making practice swings. It looks like Niagara Falls water splashing up over the club face during practice swings. Clearly, I mean, from a casual water standpoint, to get not 1 rules official, but 2 to rule against him there was horrifically bad once again on the USG has to screw something up every US Open, don't they, Chris? They have to just somewhere along. We thought for a little while they're going to get out of the week without something really ugly happening, but there it was. They had to get one. They had to get one for the tournament.
Had to get one in.
You had to get one in, and then unfortunately he gets the bad ruling and he kind of loses his mind. Because at that point he's very much in the tournament, and he actually, you could argue, he might have been in the driver's seat at that point. But he definitely, obviously let him get to him, and he kind of folded his tent, which was unfortunate. Even after making the double, he still was, not that he was in control anymore, but he was still in play. And then went on to make another bogey, and he was basically done at that point. And that's how fine a line, you walk in the U.S. Open coming down the stretch. I mean, you just can't. You have to stay in control of yourself, because on a golf course like that, bad things are going to happen. It's going to happen, and you got to be able to deal with it from hole 1 to hole 72. And he did it so well for 3 3/4 rounds, but couldn't hold it together, unfortunately. So he has that stinger, which followed the stinger at the Canadian Open. So he's probably in a rubber room somewhere, bouncing off the wall.
Speaking of bad, your boy Rory McIlroy.
All
kinds of bad.
Oh boy.
Tee marker, throwing a club, not talking to the media. We obviously did this past week at the Travelers, but he had gone, I think, 6 or 7 rounds at a major without speaking to the media. Things seem to have gone south for Rory after he won the Masters, got that career Grand Slam. Even he's talked about how it's he's having a little bit of a hard time getting up, talking about it being flat out there on the golf course. But being flat on the golf course is one thing. Destroying a tee marker and throwing a club isn't really what you were looking for, I don't think, for the face of the PGA Tour.
Well, I thought, the club throw at Doral a number of years ago. Remember we threw it in the lake on number 10 at Doral?
Yeah.
I thought that throw was like a 9.57. That was like a real quality. It had great trajectory. It carried probably 70 or 80 yards, and then the lake was the icing on the cake. I thought the throw at Oakmont was really like a 6.5 or 6.4. It was a very subpar throw. It wasn't really airborne very long. It wasn't very entertaining, and although I might give him a little higher grade because it was very childlike, the tee marker was like a 9.5. I mean, he split that thing right in half. Really made a solid strike on the tee marker. Absolutely an embarrassing. I mean, I was embarrassed watching it. I mean, I don't, and not talking to the media. He still hasn't gotten over the leaked information about the driver and the Scotty thing and the driver testing. I mean, the guy just won the career Grand Slam. He's worth $8 trillion. He's won multiple majors. He's got a lifestyle of the rich and famous, and he's acting like a 3-year-old. Really? I mean, come on, seriously, let's move on here, or just move on. Stop.
Speaking of a guy acting like a 3-year-old,
Here we go.
Wyndham Clark kicking it in the locker doors, not once but twice. Seriously,
Wyndham Clark. Yeah, I mean, because if we go back here and document some behavior by Wyndham Clark through the years, I really think there's an issue there. I mean, I think there's something really wrong with the dude. I mean, this is not his first episode, but to do that at a major, at a place as historic as Oakmont, in their locker room and destroy property. And I know they don't really disclose things like this, but I would give him a upper six figure fine, and I would have suspended him for the next 5 elevated events. Something. I mean, I would have really hurt him on that one, because that behavior has to be made an example of. We just don't do that. This is not John McEnroe. This is not baseball or football. This is golf. This is our game, and there's no place for that in our game. And the fact that he comes out and makes a statement that I made a mistake, and I think Oakmont and I should move on. Really? I think you should move on, Wyndham, on vacation for a while.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tom, because, and I said this at the top of the show last week, that I'm kind of done with Wyndham Clark because, to your point, this isn't his first rodeo where he's done something like
No,
that through a
that's
club,
not.
almost hit a volunteer. I mean, and at that point, he talked about how he, needs to calm down and all that sort of thing. And then to do it again and really to double down on it at
Yeah.
Oakmont. You kick one locker and you probably, in the fit of anger, you probably sit back and go, oh, what am I doing
Like
here?
you do.
But then to do it a second time, kicking
Yeah.
another one, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a problem. And you're right. The PGA Tour never comes out and talks about these things. But sometimes I wish they would. And I think this is one of those where you really got to set the tone for the younger kids out there, for nothing else. I mean, obviously, this is all over social media. There was speculation who did it, and then that came out not that long afterwards. But you got to set an example for the young kids out there playing our game, playing in the AJGA and stuff like that, where they know, hey, you do this sort of thing, and there's serious repercussions, not hush hush repercussions. To your point, he should have been set down for a while, and the fine should have been really something that was going to hurt his wallet, not like 10 grand to these guys.
No, it's 10 grand for these guys. That's their bar bill. That's a bottle of wine. I mean, this is listen, and I would be absolutely a liar if I said that during my playing days I never had a temper tantrum. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I never did. But as far as destroying property that didn't belong to me, no way, no how, never happened. Um, Not even close. I just made myself look like an ass at times. But to destroy property in a locker room in a setting that's as historic as that, and then double down on it, like you said, Chris, no, no bueno, no good on that one, no good.
I want to touch on the Rory thing just a little bit more because we obviously have seen where he hasn't been talking that much to the media after rounds, and where I have a problem with it, and I know the media can, everyone's looking for their 15 minutes of fame, and they can be hugely negative and all of that sort of thing. So I understand a bit of Rory's frustration, but I kind of go back to last year, Tom, at the U.S. Open when Bryson DeChambeau made the putt to clinch it and to win it, and Rory just turning around and leaving. I've had a problem with it ever since then because that's not the sportsmanship that our game is about. That's not something Mr. Palmer would have done, or Mr. Nicklaus, or even Tiger would have done. I mean, you go up and you shake the hand of the guy that beat you, even if you threw it away. Mr. Palmer threw several tournaments away, but it didn't
Big one,
stop him.
big ones.
Yeah, several majors, right? And we know about the double that he made at the Masters to lose it to Gary Player. It's not like he turned around in a huff and walked off. He shook Gary's hand. That's what you do.
What about the back nine at Olympic Club with Billy Casper and then losing the playoff?
Right?
And he puts his arm around Billy Casper on the playoff 18th hole and shakes his hand and walks off the green with his arm around him.
Yep.
Right.
I mean that's what our game is about, right? We saw another thing about what our game is about when we call penalties on ourselves. Right? We saw that this past weekend. Call a penalty on yourself. Cost a guy a tournament. Those kinds of things are what are the backbone of the game of golf, particularly at the professional level. I mean, and now, you don't want to talk to the media here either. I have a problem with sort of the whole thing, the whole image of Rory over the last year and a couple of weeks.
No, we are in complete agreement, Chris. And then the exact opposite example is, I think you probably saw the video of Adam Scott, who actually obviously shit the bed coming in when he was in position to win, waited around for JJ in the locker room, gave him a hug, shook his hand, gave him a high five, and waited for him to come in. Robbie McIntyre sitting there at the scorer's table and then watching on TV and shaking, and clapping. And I mean, that's what golf is about right there. I mean, it's just, well done, man. You beat us fair and square. The whole Rory thing and just the snarkiness and the attitude and the short answers and you guys are hard to deal with. You know what? It's the media, right? It's the media. They're not there to make you happy all the time, or that's not their job. Their job is to report what happened. And you might not like the report. You know why? Because you did something wrong. Okay? And you own that. You own 100%, and he does not own it at all.
Yeah. All right, moving on. The opposite side of the JJ Spaun coin for how well it went is another one of your favorites, Tommy Fleetwood, going into the
Wow.
tournament this past week. We all know he hasn't won on U.S. soil. It certainly looked like this was going to be an opportunity for him to get it done. I've kind of always felt like Tommy is in the Colin Montgomery, come real close, but not getting it across the finish line. Hey, I thought it was going to get done. I thought this was going to be the week. He had a 3-stroke lead going into the final round, bogeyed 3 of the first 4 holes, and here we go. But then got it back, ended up with a 2-stroke lead with 3 holes to go. I thought, well, good for him. He's going to get it done. And then not so much. Bogey 2 of the last 3 holes. Keegan Bradley birdies them, and the next thing you know, Keegan steals a win. Your thoughts?
We've talked about this offline. I'm a big Tommy Fleetwood fan, only because of the way he carries himself, and and you're pulling for the guy because he's obviously such a fine player. He's won all over the world except for here. He got the Canadian Open stolen from him with a 70-footer, right, in a playoff, which was unbelievable. And then this one, clearly, it's on him. He didn't handle it very well. And before I turn this tide on this comment, Keegan makes birdie on 18, so kudos to Keegan for making birdie on 18. I've also watched that putt that Tommy hit that he missed on 18 5 or 6 times now, really up close in slow motion. And if you watch it really closely, that ball starts on line and it hits something about halfway to the hole, and it deflects it a little bit to the right. It could have been a spike mark, could have been some kind of imperfection in the green. Part of golf, obviously. That's just part of golf. But made a bad decision with the club selection on 18. Put one club back in the bag. Probably had the right club originally. Makes birdie on a relatively short par 3 coming in, where hits it over the green, makes a bogey, and he could have kind of shut the door right there. But the thing that bothered me again, and we go back to behavior, was Keegan wins it, kind of gives him a quick handshake, brushes him off, and then puts on this little display of, asinine behavior on 18. We've all been, any of us who have competed have been stung at the 24th hour like that. And again, I thought Keegan's behavior was horseshit, really, on 18 green. Tommy Fleetwood will get it done eventually. He will get it done, and he'll get it done more than once, and it'll be all the more sweeter when it happens. But that was a hard one to watch, Chris, for sure.
Do you think that carries over into the Ryder Cup? Because it looks like Keegan now really should pick himself. There's no reason not to. He's gotten himself inside the top 6 in the Ryder Cup points. And then how that played out, to your point on 18, could that be something that Tommy carries with him as a, okay, let's do it?
I don't think that's Tommy's nature, really, Chris. I mean, obviously, in a Ryder Cup setting, no matter who you're playing, you want to beat them, So, but I don't think Fleetwood is a vindictive kind of, I want him. I don't think that's his nature, really. So I don't really see that as something, and you don't know. It's a blind draw of the singles anyway, so you don't know who you're really going to get. Although obviously anything could be arranged, right? But behind it, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I didn't insinuate that. But,
TV doesn't play into that at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, personal vendetta plays into that too. But I don't think that's his. I don't think that's really his nature.
Yeah.
If it was the opposite, I could see Keegan wanting that, but I don't think that's Fleetwood's nature, really. It just was hard to watch a guy that good of a guy. I go back and I remember Ed Snead missing the putt on 18 at the Masters. I go back and even though I wasn't a Norman fan, that collapse at the Masters to Faldo was hard to watch, even not liking Norman. As a player, you watch those things happen to people, and you've been there yourself, so you feel the pain watching it. It wasn't something that was enjoyable to watch for me.
Tom, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little instruction and technology. And I know you have all the bells and whistles in your home studio, plus at your teaching bay. I get lost in the numbers and the data, all that we have available to us nowadays. But to that end, who do you think should and should not use TrackMan, and why?
Well, that's a great question, Chris. I'm a believer in TrackMan now. I've been converted. I fought it for a long time. But even now, with TrackMan at my disposal in the Learning Center at Twin Eagles, I use it somewhat sparingly. Um, I limit the number of data tiles that I put up for any one lesson. I try to focus on 2 or 3 data tiles max during the lesson. And I use it more as an educational tool, not necessarily an improvement tool. I basically explain the numbers to them and what's really happening. What the club data says, what the ball data says, understand what they're actually doing. Um, and it's amazing how many people don't understand and has to really have to explain it to them and educate them. I am the worst TrackMan student in America personally myself. I get on TrackMan and I start out hitting it great and I end up hitting it shitty because I get too self-absorbed in the numbers and forget I should be making a golf swing. I think there are people that shouldn't use TrackMan, that shouldn't see TrackMan. Um, it goes back to one thing that I remember Butch saying at a seminar I attended a long time ago. They asked Butch if he used TrackMan. He said, TrackMan. He goes, I am TrackMan. If you've taught this game for a long time and you watch a shot hit and you're any good at your skill, your craft, and you listen to the sound of the ball coming off the face, you watch the ball in flight in terms of trajectory and shape, and you look at a divot on the ground, you bet you should damn well be able to figure out what just happened. And you don't need a machine to tell you that. I remember Bob Vokey telling me the same thing. So I really more use it to validate what I see happening in a golf swing and try to educate the person a little bit. And there's a lot of lessons where I'll let them take a few swings on TrackMan and explain it to them, and then turn it off and continue the lesson. Because they get self-absorbed in the numbers and they forget to make golf swings.
Yeah, so let's take that a half a step further, because I think we are self-absorbed and we are looking at what those numbers are. We've heard what should be and what shouldn't be in attack angles and smash factors and all that kind of stuff. How often are you working with a student who the ball no sooner leaves the face that they're turning around and looking at the TrackMan data?
All the time.
Yeah.
You're describing Justin Rose. I think you're describing, and I'm a big Justin Rose fan. I think you're also describing the demise of Justin Rose. I think that Sean Foley relationship, this is just my opinion, was damaging to Justin Rose. They got so spin the head around, look at the data, spin the head around, look at the data, spin the head. I mean, really? I mean, tell me that you can feel the difference between 1 degree open and 2 degrees open, or 2 degrees down and 1 degree down. I just don't buy that. I mean, I think you watch ball flight, you look at the number, you kind of understand what's going on, and then you got to turn this thing into a field that you can take to the golf course. Because in the middle of 13th fairway, I don't know if you know this or not, Chris, but in the middle of the 13th fairway with a 1-shot lead, TrackMan's not available. He's not available on 13 fairway in the 4th round with a 1-shot lead. You gotta play golf, not golf swing. So I think you got to be very careful. I certainly have to be very careful. I'm only speaking for myself as a teacher and a coach. I got to be very, very careful of how much I use it, who I use it with, and when I use it.
Tom, just a couple more before I let you go. And my next guest, I know, is a gentleman that is very meaningful for you and your life and your career. One of the most decorated PGA professionals that we've ever had, and that's John Kennedy. Talk about your relationship with John.
That's really pretty simple, Chris. And I don't want to make it oversimplistic, but if it wasn't for John Kennedy, I'd be working on a garbage truck somewhere. John Kennedy made Tom Patri. It's very simple. John Kennedy gave me an opportunity when I clearly was not at that very moment qualified. We started together. He hired me as a teacher at Cold Spring Country Club on Long Island originally. I had zero experience. He believed in the possibility. He mentored me through that. I went off and got a head job for 2 years, which I was not happy with. He knew that. An opportunity came along when he became director of golf at Westchester Country Club. and he gave me the opportunity of a lifetime, an opportunity that doesn't come along very often in this business, at a facility that's incredibly historic and incredibly cool, and was the site of a tour event. It allowed me to be exposed to some of the greatest teachers in the world for 11 years of my life. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was holding my hand every step of the way, um, and keep me in my lane. And I needed to be kept in my lane. Trust me, in those days, I definitely needed to be kept in my lane. John Kennedy made my golf career.
Tom, before I let you go, remind our listeners again, like I said at the top, you do a wonderful Instagram live show, 8 a.m. Eastern time, typically somewhere in and around that area each morning. Talk about what you've got coming up and how people can tune in.
Yeah, Chris, I've had some great people on. You've been on the show, and I really appreciate that. I've had Chris Como on, Damon Hack, Bob Ford, Matt Cahill, the professional Seminole. I've got Nick Serban, who's one of the owners and founders of Club Champion, coming on soon. Terry Hashimoto, who I consider the father of ground force, coming on soon. And a host of people behind the scenes down the road that I think are going to commit pretty soon here. It's been fun. I'm usually live every morning at 8 o'clock. People can email me at my email address, tpatri@mindspring.com, with their questions, comments, or concerns for the following morning. Or if I don't have a guest on, they can ask in live and have a little banter with the old pro. So it's kind of fun. I really started it just as a fun endeavor. It's kind of taken on life of its own. It's been a blast. And if you can get your bathrobe on one morning, maybe you can come on it.
I'm no good at that hour of the morning.
Oh, come on now.
Not ready. All right, my friend, you are the best. And everybody, because Tom will never tell you, you can find him on Instagram at Tom Patri Golf and online at tompatri.com. You're the best, my friend. I can't thank you enough. And look forward to catching up soon.
I love you. I love you. Appreciate the opportunity very much to come on every 2 weeks with you. And it's been a blessing to be on with you. And please tell John I said hi. I love the guy with all my heart.
I will absolutely do that. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your wife. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, pal.
See ya. That's a great Tom Patri, folks. Again, one more time, at Tom Patri Golf on Instagram. TomPatri.com is where you can find him on his website. Don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel. Remember, you're going to get over 300 free playing lessons and tips if you go out there and sign up for that and check it out. Tom Patri is just the best. I love that guy. He's meant a lot to me. And this show over the years, we wouldn't be where we are without him. So I can't thank him enough. Look forward to catching up with him again in a couple of weeks. Okay, coming up next is the aforementioned John Kennedy, like we say, one of the all-time great instructors in our game and a Met Section Hall of Famer. Before I bring John into the show, I want to remind you about our wonderful friends over at On Point Golf and their out-of-this-world On Point Golf Ball Marker. And if you don't have one, folks, you really need to go check it out at onpointgolf.us. Get the #1 ball marker in the game of golf. On Point is the only three-dimensional ball marker out there, with alignment technology and a removable coin that is approved to use according to the rules of golf. As you know, putting is all about line and pace. Mark your ball with On Point, engage with your three-dimensional ball marker, and have more confidence in your line, execute the putt, and you're going to lower your scores. Do what the likes of Jim Furyk, PGA professionals, and amateurs alike are doing now. They use the #1 ball marker in golf and they lower their scores. You know Ken Duke and Thongchai JD. They won for the first time on the PGA Tour in 2023, and they were using an On Point ball marker. Get yours at onpointgolf.us and make more putts. And oh, by the way, you can also customize the removable coin for any club, event, or corporate outing. They make really great tee gifts and custom products. That's also going to help lower your score. I use On Point ball markers. Mine is black and gold, 3D black golf ball with a gold line down the middle to help me line up my putts. It's like having a 15th club in my bag. It's helped my game. Why wouldn't you let it help yours? Again, onpointgolf.us. See what I'm talking about. Order yours today. All right, now back and next on the tee is the aforementioned John Kennedy. Let me tell you a little bit about John. 1981, he was the director of golf at Cold Springs Country Club in Cold Spring, New York. Moved over to Westchester Country Club in 1991, then on to his own golf consulting company in 2017. He is a 3-time National PGA Award winner, including being recognized with the Horton Smith Award 3 times, once nationally and twice by the Metropolitan section for his contributions to PGA education. 2012, he was presented with the Patriot Award for his service to the military and our veterans. 2017, he received the Bill Strausbaugh Award nationally, plus he received it 2 more times in the Met section for his mentorship of over 100 PGA professionals, like you just heard, including my man Tom Patri. He's been named Merchandiser of the Year twice in the Met section. 1997, he was named the PGA Professional of the Year. In 2014, Westchester named their Golf Learning Center in his honor. And in 2020, he was inducted into the Met Section Hall of Fame. He's written a couple of books, Tales from the Lesson Tee, How to Know Your Game, Know Yourself, and Play Better Without Changing Your Swing, and You Can Do It, A Path to Improvement in Golf and in Life. And I'm very honored he is back with me again this week here on Next on the Tee. Hi, John. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Chris. Good evening. Good to hear from you.
So my boy Tom Patri sends his best. So I got to ask you a question because he has been a part of this show for nearly 10 years, 118 episodes, including tonight's. Your peers have been telling me I'm crazy for having him on that many times. How did you deal with TP for all of those years?
Well, I just, I love his energy, his enthusiasm for the game of golf and for people who like golf. And it really carries forward in his relationship with people. He's probably one of the best, most loyal friends you could have.
I don't disagree with that at all. John, I want to talk to you about your time, obviously, at Westchester. It's got a rich history in our game, goes back over 100 years. In the 60s, it hosted the Thunderbird Classic. Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus won 2 of the first 3 tournaments. Became the Westchester Classic, then later the Barclays. Plus, it's hosted the 2011 Senior Players Championship, the 2015 KPMG Women's PGA Championship. All of those played there at Westchester. Talk about the rich history of that golf course.
Well, the history of the club obviously was built in 1922. And I may have shared this with you before, but just because the U.S. Open was just held at Oakmont, but you know that the 1927 Oakmont U.S. Open was won by Tommy Armour, and he beat Harry Cooper in a playoff. Well, in 1927, Tommy Armour was working in the golf shop at Westchester. And in 1997, 70 years later, Harry Cooper was working at Westchester Country Club.
Wow.
So you talk about history, that's like an incredible link. And as it turned out that Harry Cooper's father, Sid, was an apprentice to Old Tom Morris, who was an apprentice to Alan Robertson, who was really the first golf professional at St. Andrews. So Harry Cooper was actually the last living link to the first golf professional of all time.
So let's go back a couple of years prior to that, because I was doing some research in October of 1922. The club hosted the Golf Championship of the World, which was a 72-hole contest between Walter Hagen and Gene Sarazen. They played the first round back at Oakmont, then took an overnight train to New York. Sarazen came from behind to beat Hagen 3-2 in their 36-hole match. Then I read he collected the winner's check of $2,000 and went to St. Luke's Hospital in Yonkers to have an emergency appendectomy. That's a tremendous story.
Yeah, it is. It is. And Walter Hagen actually at one point had a room at Westchester Country Club, because they tell in his autobiography, he talks about winning the British Open and then coming back on the boat. He said, I think first place was $500. He said, I spent it all on the trip back, and I could not afford cab fare but to get back to my room at Westchester Country Club.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So you had the ancient history, and then you had the current history of the PGA Tour being there, which gave Westchester a special feel for sure. And the members had a great commitment to that tournament, primarily because it had a local flavor, because it was owned by United Hospital, which doesn't exist anymore, but the local hospitals own that tournament. And so they got all the benefit from it. So the members were very supportive of that. And then subsequently, the tour bought the event in the probably in the late 90s, but they still made a great contribution to local charities, which the PGA Tour does. I think that a lot of people don't know that, but the PGA Tour in terms of contribution to charity, does more than all the other professional sports organizations combined.
Right. And didn't Ben Hogan, wasn't that the place he played his final competitive round?
As far as I know, it's true. In 1970, I think he played, and they tell the story about him they gave him a 7 o'clock start time, and he was playing with Chichi Rodriguez and Dave Hill, and they said they should never have given him an early morning time because it took him 3 hours to get himself even close to being ready to play golf. And then Chichi was kind of dancing around the green. Apparently, Ben said something to Dave Hill, and he pulled Chichi aside and said, "That'll be enough of that." Even though
doubt he
Chichi was a
did.
great guy, but it just wasn't the right time.
Yeah. So, John, hosting a major like the Senior Players Championship or the KPMG Women's PGA Championship, is that more challenging than hosting a regular tour event like you did for many years out there? Or are preparations on a course like Westchester pretty much consistent, the same, no matter what kind of tournament is being played there?
Well, as far as getting the golf course ready, obviously the superintendent does that, running up to it. And then the tour, the advanced people come in usually 6 months in advance and talk about some of the parameters. And then they come 2 weeks in advance and stay on site. So I'm going to say that a regular PGA Tour event was certainly more work because you're dealing with 4 pro-ams. So that's a lot of work getting the pro-ams ready and getting everybody prepared and the logistics of that. The KPMG, because it was the first time that they had held the KPMG tournament. That was the first year the KPMG sponsored it, and it was at the first major venue that the ladies had had. So their ladies PGA Championship used to be sponsored by Wegmans, and it was up in Rochester. And then they decided to upgrade it and got a new sponsor and decided to go to a major site. So helping them do that, and that was NBC's first time at the club. So there was some logistics involved in that too. But I would say overall, probably a PGA Tour event is a little more hectic.
I have to imagine that a lot of great players and celebrities were calling the pro shop on a regular basis, wanting to come out there and play. Who are some of the great people that you had an opportunity to meet out there over the years?
Probably from Denzel Washington. They actually filmed a scene, or they were going to film a scene with Pierce Brosnan for the Thomas Crown affair, and he just really couldn't do golf. He wasn't a golfer, and they probably should have gotten a double, but they decided to try to have him hit a bunker shot, which of all things, they should have had him try to hit a chip shot. So and then obviously a lot of famous businessmen and doctors and so forth, probably more on the business side than the entertainment side, because technically you're supposed to be accompanied by a member. A lot of, professional athletes, Yankees would come out, Roger Clemens, Andy Pettit, a lot of the Rangers, obviously the Giants were owned by one of the members. And so, although they had a couple of their charity outings there, so that's mainly when you'd see the Giants, and the Rangers also had a charity outing, so they would play there too. And there were a couple of guys from the Rangers that lived in Rye, because I think they trained in Rye and at the rink, so they would be around occasionally.
John, we're on the heels, obviously, of this year's U.S. Open. It returns to Shinnecock next year. What do you expect to see? Do you think we're going to see something very similar to what we saw at Oakmont here last week, or what's your expectation for Shinnecock in the U.S. Open in 2026?
Well, I certainly hope not. I have a lot of respect for the membership at Oakmont, but I just thought that the way that golf course was set up, it didn't really, even though it was a great victory for JJ Spaun, and I was very happy for him. I just think it took some of the skill out of the players. There was too much element of chance. I remember there was a year where one of our green chairmen decided to grow the rough very deep, and Slugger White was the official in charge. He was the advanced guy, and he came out and he dropped the ball in the rough, and he said to the green chairman, he said, "So now at that time, Vijay Singh was one of the best players. If I have Vijay hit the shot and if I have you hit the shot, and you're an 18 handicap, you both have to hit the same shot. You basically have to just pitch it out." And I think that there was too much of that was going on in Oakmont from my perspective. So I think the fact that they had a problem at Shinnecock previously in terms of losing control of the course. I mean, that whole story about Phil Mickelson whacking the golf ball when it was still rolling on that green, and I think the previous Open at Shinnecock, they had to water the greens, or one of the greens, because it got too slick. So my instincts are that that it'll be much more playable, because the golf course itself is an incredible golf course, and they really don't need to play with it too much.
With the course being out there on Long Island, I mean, obviously weather can always play an impact like it did at Oakmont, but wind can be a big factor in a place like Shinnecock. Talk about the wind factor. Have you seen it get really crazy from a wind speed out there at Shinnecock?
I remember one time playing and not playing in the tournament, but the 11th hole is a par three, and I think it's about 150 yards. And I was playing with three other club professionals, pretty good players. And the first one on the tee hit a 4-iron. The last one hit a 1-iron, 150 yards.
Wow.
And that's when we had 1-irons. Now you just butter your bread with a 1-iron.
That's right. John, the Met section has produced so many great players and PGA professionals like my boy Tom Patri. Who were some of the great young professionals that you had an opportunity to work with over the years?
Oof. Well, let's see. I would say the ones who are currently doing very well. Obviously, Bruce Zabriskie was, you know, the PGA of America is 30,000 members, and they have a Player of the Year award, and nobody's ever won it twice. And Bruce won it 5 times. Now, 2 of the times he was working at Wingfoot, and 3 of the times he was working at Westchester. But so I won't take full credit, but certainly as a player, Bruce was outstanding, and a great personality too. Loved the game of golf, sort of like Tom, just loves anybody who loves golf. And then Adam McDade, who's out at Friars Head now, was on our team, and Ben Hoffine, who's now the director of golf at Westchester, was on our team. So there were so many. Debbie Austin, who is retired now, but she won 9 times, I think, on the LPGA Tour. So she was a pleasure to work with Debbie too. So a lot of we had the opportunity to have a lot of fine assistants go on to become head professionals, and that's one of the blessings of being at a big club, is that you do have an opportunity to impact a lot of different people, and so Westchester gave me that opportunity, and I tried to take full advantage of it by being a good mentor, and a fellow PGA professional.
John, Rob Labritz has become a wonderful friend of this show. I've been blessed to have Rob on several times. Did you ever have an opportunity to spend some time with Rob?
Not a lot of time, but I will say this, that the times I went to Gun Arbor when he was there, he always went out of his way to make me feel so welcome. And you could just see his smile was so genuine, and he really meant what he said. And I was so happy for him that he was able to make it out on the senior tour. Obviously incredibly talented, but his energy as a golf professional and as just a fellow human being was very impressive.
Tom always reminds me and our listeners that nobody gets to where they are in life on their own. Who are some of the people that helped you along your career path there with the PGA?
Oh, yeah. Well, early on, I would say probably Tommy Murphy, who a lot of the people listening would never know, but he was the head professional at Sleepy Hollow when I worked there. And Tommy actually he had been, and I'm drawing a blank on, he was Jack Grout's assistant at Scioto when Jack Nicklaus was growing up in Ohio. So, and then he eventually became the head professional at Canterbury in Cleveland, and then he came to Sleepy Hollow, and I was his assistant for 4 years. So he really showed me the inside operations and what it was like to run a business, run a staff, to be organized. Then Al Nelson, who was the head professional at Royal Poinciana in Naples, he was a very good player. He grew up in California. He was actually a runner-up to Gene Littler in the California Amateur in the mid-'50s. So he taught me a lot about teaching and passion for the game. So those two had besides all the very great golf professionals in that section who were so free with their time and advice.
John, as we look ahead a few months, the Ryder Cup is getting to be contested there just down the street at Bethpage Black. How excited are you to have an event of that magnitude right there, like I say, right down the street from you?
Yeah. Well, of course, the Ryder Cup is a very unique event. I'm hoping that the behavior is appropriate. Because it can get a little intense. I remember at the PGA when Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka were coming down the stretch, it got a little bit on the edge. And I said to somebody, I was watching it, and I said, Ryder Cup's coming there in 6 years. I said, I hope it's going to be okay because it gets worse there. But you've got the whole Keegan Bradley influence, that whole St. John's connection. And then the fact that the United States, it's not been doing well the last 20 years, really. I mean, they've won a couple of events local, in the United States. Europeans have a lot of very good players. And for some reason, the American players don't seem to play to their level when they play in the Ryder Cup, and the Europeans seem to exceed it. So you've got a lot of very exciting things going on. It'll be a great event, no question about it.
Why is it, your last comment there, why do you think it is that the U.S. doesn't seem to be able to rise to the occasion in the way that the European team does?
Yeah, I think it could be a combination of two things. I think number one, I don't think it's the be all and end all that it really is to the Europeans. So I think that they, that psychological fire that you need to really win an event. It's like sometimes you see like Tampa Bay beat the Yankees. You say, how could that be? So that's got to come from within. I mean, it's obviously not skill. And so I think that some of it is the desire. And then the other side is once you get behind the eight ball, the expectations are when you're the favorite, sometimes you put a lot of pressure on yourself too. So like that last year when it was in Italy, I remember I think Scotty Scheffler and Brooks Koepka may have lost 9 and 7. So I mean that's like
Right.
it's not even possible. So there's no question that's like a snowball going down a hill. It just gets heavier and heavier. And so I think the expectations. So it could be a combination of the two, I think.
John, just a couple more before I let you go. And I want you to talk about the work that you've done over the years helping our military veterans learn and relearn the game. It's a tremendous thing that you've done, bringing the game back to some guys that really deserve it.
Yeah. I was fortunate that we had the executive director of the Manhattan VA, who was a member at Westchester, and he introduced me to the people in the because they were doing all the for all the amputees out of that building before they opened up the new one down in Dallas. And so I got to bring some of the guys up to Westchester and work with them. And I got trained by Jim Estes, who was down working with the guys out of Walter Reed. So that's where it started. And then the PGA created PGA Hope. And so I've been a part of that when I'm available. And it's great. It's no question about it to be around people who have given, in many cases, their limbs for our freedom, and then be able to give them a little joy and the comradeship in the military is amazing. That those guys just bond when they're together. They love being together, whether it doesn't matter whether it's a Vietnam vet or somebody from Afghanistan. They just have that bond, and so you get them out playing golf and having a good time. And it doesn't matter how they play; the fact they're out there is great.
The Mets section elected you to their Hall of Fame a few years ago. What was it like for you to be recognized like that in front of your peers?
Well, everybody says it's humbling, and when you look back on your career, it's you start out as a young kid working in a bag room, and to think that you work your way through and have the opportunities that I had. So I was grateful. The way I look at it, Chris, is that if I can give back, 25% of what I got, I feel very grateful. And so that's really what I'm focused on now, is if I have the opportunity to give back to anybody, because so many people gave to me, then it's great. And I think that's part of the DNA of the Met section is that whole idea of giving back and helping each other. And that's, I just finished my third book, which is we're just getting put together for paperback now, but and it's called Progress, Not Perfection. And I don't know that we're gonna have it on Amazon just because you have to get it published, but I don't really care about selling it. I'm just gonna make some copies and send it to some friends. But all I want to do is sit down and write down kind of things that I've learned. and it's not golf swing things, it's life things. And so I was happy I was able to do that. So if that's able to give anybody a boost or give somebody direction, then when I was a 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid, somebody gave me direction. So it's my turn.
So to that end, I mentioned in your intro your other two books. Talk about those and what we'll learn when we go out there on Amazon and pick those books up.
Well, Tales from the Lesson Tee is really just little stories about. It started with why, all the years I taught and why people didn't really get as much better as they thought they should based on the amount of time they put in. And so it was kind of my philosophy and my experience working with people. And hopefully what you would learn is that you just need to hear what I call hear one voice. And so you have to buy into a philosophy, into a coach, into a belief system. And then you have to, be patient with yourself. And you have to accept the downfalls that come in golf and life. And the people who are able to do those three things, you hear the one voice, you're patient with yourself, and you're able to deal with setbacks. First of all, you're going to have a lot more fun. And secondly, in the long term, you're going to actually get better. And then my second book was really, I said, why don't people get better at anything? Why do people have a hard time changing? So I read a bunch of psychology books, psychology books for laymen, and took a look at what the patterns were of why people don't improve. And there were pretty consistent patterns. So those are the two. That's really the essence of those first two books. And then the third one, as I said, is just, topics like acceptance and how to build an environment that supports a good life and why learning is a good way to go. Being present, something that I didn't learn. That's something that they talk about with meditation, but being present, I mean, Tiger Woods is probably the king of being present when he was competing. I mean, how could he hit those shots under pressure unless he was present? Or Michael Jordan hit those shots.
John, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with you, whether they're following you online or it's over social media?
Yeah, the only social media I do is LinkedIn. So just look for John Kennedy on LinkedIn. If they do LinkedIn, I don't do Instagram. I think that some people are going to put my new book on Instagram, but it'll probably be on their Instagram accounts. So yeah, I think if they just LinkedIn's the best way to do it. And I think they could probably pick up some stuff on YouTube too.
Well, John, it has been an extreme honor getting to have you back on the show again with me this week. I hope you'll come back and do it again. You've so many things to learn from you. I'd really like to dive into the books next time and how we can do things differently or better. Things that you want to talk about knowing yourself and being able to play better, as you say in the title of your first book, without changing your swing. And I think that that's something that is grossly understated and very valuable to us. And we talk about the mental side of the game a lot on this show. But I think both of the things that you talked about in your first two books are something I'd really like to get an opportunity to get more in depth with you.
Great. Well, anyway, Chris, I do appreciate the opportunity, and I also appreciate the work that you do for the game of golf, because it's you're a real supporter and it shows.
I appreciate that very much, John. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you. Good night.
See you, John.
Bye-bye.
That is a great John Kennedy, folks. As I say, one of the most decorated and appreciated PGA professionals in the history of our game, recognized for greatness both nationally and on the local level there at the Met section. Fantastic stuff, helping our military veterans learn or relearn the game. So many great stories about Westchester Country Club and the history there. But really, when you go back and you look at it, I'm so happy to hear that he's got a third book coming out. Again, he said the title is Progress, Not Perfection, right? And I think that's so profound in our game, right? We're all thinking we're learning, try to be perfect every time, perfect golf swing. And we know that that doesn't exist. I mean, there's some great ones out there, don't get me wrong, but we're chasing perfection when we should just be chasing getting a little bit better each and every time we tee it up. And then you go back and look at his first two books. Again, Tales from the Lesson Tee, How to Know Your Game, Know Yourself, and Play Better Without Changing Your Golf Swing, and then you can do it. A Path to Improvement in Golf and in life. So a lot more to get into with John. So hopefully we get the privilege of having him back on the show again before too long. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on part one of this week's show. My sincere thanks again to Tom Patri and John Kennedy for joining me. I hope you enjoyed those conversations as much as I did. Kind of an emotional experience getting to learn more about Tom and his relationship with John and the great things that John did to help Tom grow his career and grow up in the game. And John is such a treasure and such a tribute to our game. A guy, again, nationally recognized, locally recognized in the Met Section Hall of Fame. Just a great individual. So I really enjoyed having them as part of part one of the show. Now come back for part two now, because Kyle Malou, the chief marketing officer for a rising brand in our game, Sunday Swagger, he's going to tell you an awful lot about how they have done things and how they have incorporated bright and bold colors to really kind of give our game kind of a shot in the arm, make it a little more fun, and again, tie the whole family in on it. So that's for men, it's for women, it's for the kids. You can tie the whole family together in these wonderful, bright, bold designs. You're going to hear an awful lot about that. They've done a lot of great things with those designs in a very short period of time with their own marketing ideas and strategies that are very different than what's going on out there. So I think you're really going to enjoy Kyle. And then we get a quick turnaround with Richard Zocco. Remember, he was here just a week or so ago. Richard's going to come back and talk about a lot of player stories. So you're going to hear about guys that maybe you're not as familiar with from the past. You'll get to hear stories about Jim King, a guy who would later become Lee Trevino's bodyguard, but he played out on some of the local tours and a little bit out on the PGA Tour. Very interesting story about Jim King. And then we'll talk about Mo Norman and his time with Mo back in 1984, and Clay Edwards, who had a huge impact on Richard's swing and his golf career. We'll hear about the practical joke that he played on Jack Nicklaus in 1990 at Cypress Point, and a whole lot more. So press play again. Part two of this week's show is coming up. Folks, I can't thank you enough for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies, and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.